Hi, my name's Kieran. I'm one of the community managers here at Panavox, where we've been developing RichCast. RichCast is a brand new no-code app that allows anybody to create interactive content, whether that be stories, games, movies, quizzes, even educational content, without any need to know anything technical such as coding or programming. RichCast uses a simple to use drag and drop interface that allows creators to build their content on desktop. And the most exciting thing about RichCast is these stories can be published and played instantly on mobile. Today I'm going to show you how you can make an interactive story and play it on mobile within minutes. This is the RichCast editor, and as you can see it's very simple to use and pretty self-explanatory when you actually look at it. So we have a simple flowchart system, and this is all you need to know to actually get started with building interactive content. So we have a series of tiles across the top of the page, and all you would do is just drag them into the flow like this, in whichever order you want, hook them up like this, and then when you push play, it'll just automatically follow these and play them in whatever order you've put in there. So really easy to use. So today we're going to make a short horror demo, and I'll show you how you actually use these tiles to create something, to create an immersive story. So the first thing we're going to do is drag in the audio tile. So because it's a horror story, obviously atmospherics are very important, so things like sound effects and music are really going to help build the scene here. So what we can do with the audio tile is we can import our own audio, or we can actually go to our inbuilt media library that we have here. So we've got a number of different sound effects we can use, but for the purposes of this story I've uploaded a few myself. So I think we're going to start with this eerie music because well, it sets the scene nicely. So let's just have a quick listen to this before we import it. Sounds kind of creepy, so we're going to put that into the story. Now we have multiple different audio channels that we can use. This basically means that we can have multiple sounds happening at once. So for example, if you wanted to play some music, but you also wanted to have some sound effects appear at certain times in your story, then you've got multiple different channels that you can actually do this on. So because this is music, we're just going to put this onto the music channel. And we'll just call it eerie music. Now we can change the volume of this if we want. We can set this to fade in. We can put a delay on this, so if we wanted to leave it a few seconds before the music actually starts, we can do that. And we've got multiple effects here that we can put onto each audio tile. So we've got reverb if we want to sound like we're in a cave or a big hall. We've got high pass filters, so if you want to make the music sound like it's being played on a telephone or something like that, you can do. And it's as easy as that. But we also might want to put in some sound effects as well. So we can do the same process here. We can go in here and we can find Stormy Night. It sounds like it's going to be appropriate for this story. And the great thing is you can actually listen to these before you put them into the flow. So if you do want to audition them and listen to what you might be putting in first, you can do that. And we'll set this as an ambience because it's kind of an ambient noise that we're going to listen to in the background. And we'll call it Stormy Night. We'll turn the volume down on this a little bit because it was quite a loud sample. And what we can also do here is loop this so that this will just play over and over until we ask it to stop. Now this will follow both of these and it'll play the eerie music and it'll also play the Stormy Night at the same time. So now we've got our audio set up, we can import some visuals into the project. Now you'll notice that this is a landscape visual tile at the moment. We can change this if we want to by just going to our settings. And we can change that from landscape to portrait. So depending on how you want the person to play this on their mobile, you can have that in either orientation. So we work on a layer system on the visual tile, which means that we can import multiple layers. So for example, if we have a background, but then we want to put some characters in, we can do that and we can move the characters around on a separate layer to the background. We might want to remove characters, we might want to put objects in there. So with it being a horror story, let's get a creepy visual that we can put as the background here. So following the same process, we're just going to find something that we think looks good. And I think this, so once imported, we can resize this, we can set it so that it moves around, so we can pan across, for example. We can do a whole number of things to make it a little bit more immersive than just looking at a static image. For the purposes of this, we're going to give the player some objects to interact with. So because we've got a layer system, we're going to use separate layers for each object, and that way we can actually set them to fade in and signify to the player that they're objects that can be used. So all we do is we'd hit layer here, we'd find the object that we want. So in this case, prop gun is going to be a good choice. You know, maybe the player wants to, maybe there's a monster chasing the player and we want the gun to be able to shoot at the monster. So we'd select that. We can zoom in. Now obviously this looks quite large at the moment. We can make that a bit smaller and just position that wherever we want on the table. And as I mentioned, we want to make this fade in, and we can do this with just a couple of clicks. So each visual tile has a timer on it. So this is 5 seconds. So we've basically got a 5 second window for us to do things with this visual tile. We can change this to longer, you know, if we want 20 seconds, 30 seconds. But right now we've got 5 seconds that we can play. And see that nothing in particular is happening yet. But what we can do is we can select this gun. We can set that so it's completely faded out. We hit end, and this will take us to the end of our 5 second loop, and set that to 100%. Hit play to check it's working, and it's as simple as that. We faded the gun in. So now we've got the gun on the table. We might want to give the player a couple of other options for interactable objects. So if we go and add another layer here and check what we've actually got for the player to interact with. So we've got some keys. We've also got a phone here, so maybe the player wants to pick up the keys and escape rather than fight off the monster with the gun. Or maybe they want to get the phone, and that'll give them the opportunity to ring the police or dial 911. So we're going to bring in the keys here, and we're going to follow the exact same process, make it fade in. Now what we can do is we can actually test this. We've got a test window here, and all you would do is bring this up, take it to whichever tile where you want to play from. If you hit play, it'll go directly from the start, or you can play from a selected tile, and it'll just make sure that everything is working correctly. And it's as easy as that. We can see all the visuals are working and all the audio is playing nicely. So now what we might want to do is bring a character into the story. So we have a text-to-speech system which uses over 150 AI voices. You can choose from whatever voice you want to voice your particular character. So we go into our actor list here, and let's call our actor Joe. Now we can choose from whatever voice we want down here to play the part of Joe, so we can listen to them and we can check to find a voice that we particularly like.
Hey, my name is Zach and I own my own ute.
I don't know if Zach's quite the part. Let's try Cody.
Hi, I am Cody and I prefer to stay at home and play video games in my spare time.
Cody sounds pretty good. We can actually change the pitch of this as well. We can change the speed, so there's extra options for customization, but I think what we've got there is pretty good for Cody. So we come out of that, it'll take a couple of seconds to update, and now we can go into our speak tile, and we can select Joe as our actor. So now we can type whatever we want Joe to say, and it'll read it back to us. So let's say Joe says, what are we going to do? We can check this is working.
What are we going to do?
And we can also put that in there, so we've got a name for each speak tile. So Joe's asking us what we want to do. Now we want to give the player the option to pick up the gun, pick up the keys, or pick up the phone. And we have a choice tile for this. So this will appear on screen as a button, or the player can actually control it with their voice. So we need to tell the player what the option is. So here we can say pick up the phone. So this will appear as an on-screen button which the player can tap, or if they want to actually control it with their voice, then we have a keyword system which will allow the player to do that. Now what this means is the system will look out for particular words that the player says, and if it identifies those words, it will send them down the particular route that you've set. So here the player might say, I want to pick up the phone. They might say, get the telephone. They might say, I want to call the police. They might say, get the iPhone. So you're predicting what the player might actually say and using those keywords to trigger a particular route. So if the player says any of those words here, it's going to take them down this route. And then we just need to do the same thing with the keys. The player might say get the keys, they might say unlock the door, they might say get the keys and get in the car, they might just say key. So by following that same process, we'd now trigger this route when the player says any of those particular words. And then we have pick up the gun as well. So they might say gun, they might say pistol, they might say shoot, a number of different things. Now we can order these as well, whichever order we want them in. So we might want the gun to be the first choice, in which case we just put the choice tile up there. So something you can do to make this a little bit more immersive is give the option for a variable. So a variable is when the system remembers something that the player has done. So that could be picking up an object, it could be giving them a score. In this case, we want the system to know that the player has picked up the gun. So we just go into this box, we create a new variable, let's call it got the gun, and we can set that either as a number or true or false. So So what we're going to do here is if the player chooses the gun, we're going to set this variable of got the gun to true. Now what that means is when the player goes down this route, the system will remember that they've picked up the gun. So later on in the story, let's say for example the monster jumps out and you want to give the player the option to shoot the monster if they've picked up the gun. By going down this route, the system will recognise the player has picked up the gun, and then later on it'll give you the ability to actually use that. So let's now bring the monster into play. So we're going to bring another audio tile in. We've got some nice monster sounds down here. That sounds pretty scary. So let's put that as a sound effect 1 because we know that's going to be a sound effect. So this won't actually affect the previous audio tiles if they're still playing because this is on a different channel. And it's as easy as that. So the player will make a choice, the monster will pop up, and then maybe Joe will ask us what we want to do. What shall we do? Following the same process, we can put in a choice. Maybe we want to either escape, in which case we can put escape, run, hide, evacuate, anything the player might say. Or similarly, there might be an option to attack the monster. So we'd have attack, fight, confront, any words that might signify that we're going to attack the monster. Now what do we do if the player asks or says that they want to do something that isn't actually listed in any of our choices? Well, we actually have a system for this as well, which is simply known as an other. Now what this will do is this will trigger if the player says anything that isn't already listed in these keywords. So let's say we've got the option of escape and attack the monster, and the player turns around and says, I want to make a sandwich. Now obviously that's something that's completely irrelevant and won't be used in the story at all. So what we can do here is use an other to trigger a separate route when they say something that isn't recognised by another choice tile. And we can use Joe to get them back on track, for example. So Joe might say, we can either attack that thing or we can escape. So we're signifying to the player that actually there's only 2 choices here and you need to make a choice out of one of those. Another option that we can do is what's called a nothing tile, and this is basically a timer that waits, and if the player doesn't make a response in a certain amount of time, it will trigger this route. So let's say we give the player 10 seconds to make a decision. If they don't make that decision, then this route would trigger. So this tile here, we can either attack that thing or we can escape. Now we could use that as a prompt again, just by copying and pasting. And then this will go back down to this route again. So Joe would say, if we don't respond within 10 seconds, Joe will say, we can either attack that thing or we can escape. What shall we do? And it's as easy as that. So now we'll make one of these choices. We'll go down one of these routes. Let's bring the demo to the end of the demo. And it's as easy as that. So that's taken us around 15 minutes, and that's with me explaining everything. So really you can see how quick and easy it is once you get going to build these interactive stories and interactive content on RichCast. Now RichCast has been designed to be a collaborative platform, so you can work with others on your project, whether that's a scriptwriter, an artist or a musician. You can even upload your own voice acting clips, which can take the place of the AI actors that we have in RichCast for a more personalised experience. You can add sticky notes to your project, so let's say, this section needs music. Then when our sound designer or our composer or our musician comes into the story, they know that they'll see that in real time, and they'll know that they can actually add their own sections in there. And it's a great way of keeping up progress or looking out for anything that might be missing or anything that you've got left to do in that particular section. You can set different pages up, so this will help your organisation. So we've got one page here for horror demo. If we wanted to set up another page for, the kitchen, the lounge, the basement, we can do that, and then we can segregate each particular location into a page, and that just really helps with organisation. But the really great thing about this is we can now play this on our mobile phone instantly. So all we need to do from here is just exit out the project. That'll upload to RichCast, and then we can go into our mobile phone now and we can play this straight away. So we've now got a fully playable game on our RichCast on mobile. So all we need to do is go into RichCast, we select My Projects, we find Horror Demo, we hit play, and there we have it. The game will now come up, exactly as we've just built it.
What are we going to do?
Let's pick up the gun.
What shall we do? We can either attack that thing, or we can escape. What shall we do?
Let's try and escape.
The end of the demo.
And there we go. So as you can see, very simple, very quick and very easy to do. So RichCast is currently available on Android and iPhone worldwide, or you can download the creator on desktop now. If you head to our website richcast.com, you'll find full information there, or you can email us directly at community@panivox.com. So now you know how easy it is to make immersive titles on RichCast, why not give it a go? We've made it as easy as possible, so now it's down to you to show us how creative you can be. Go on, impress us, your friends and the world with your creativity.